Welcome everyone to our BookWidgets Wednesday webinar series. Today we will be exploring Microsoft Teams for beginners inside BookWidgets. I'm Cheryl. Let's go ahead and get started right away. So as you know, if you are a BookWidgets user or if you are just starting out with BookWidgets, BookWidgets is a teacher content creation and evaluation tool. It will help guide you through the process of creating content and improving your students' learning from beginning to end. When we talk about creating content, it of course starts with our vast widget library of over 40 content creation templates that you can use to create content for your students and support them using interactive and engaging lessons. We have a full integration with most learning management systems, and today we will be focusing on Microsoft Teams. We also have the ability with BookWidgets inside Microsoft Teams to monitor our student progress live, and being able to immediately act upon our student work, provide them feedback, encourage them when they're doing well, and support them when they're not as successful as we'd like them to be is a game changer for us in any environment, remote, hybrid, or face-to-face. And then finally, included with BookWidgets, we have a robust reporting dashboard. Statistics and information to guide our instruction are extremely important. And so the ability for BookWidgets to provide you insightful statistics that help you review and change your instruction perhaps in an efficient way is very important. Of course, also the ability to share these statistics and data with other stakeholders, administrators, and other teachers, as well as students and parents, is a great way to support learning. So in short, that's what BookWidgets is. So we have our widget library, auto grading, LMS integration, including Microsoft Teams, our real-time monitoring, and our reporting dashboard. We're going to go ahead and dive into Microsoft Teams and show you what this will look like for you. But the first thing that I'd like to share with you are some widgets. The first widget that I have here for you is a worksheet widget. And you will notice on this worksheet widget that there's a scroll bar on the side. The great thing about a worksheet widget is you can add as many questions as you would like on this activity. You can see that we can embed video. We have short and extended response questions, fill in the blank style questions, both with a word bank and without a word bank. Table style questions, which are really useful for standardized state and district assessments. True, false, multiple choice, annotating pictures, over 35 different question types. And I love this worksheet because it shows you a sample of every style of question. And I'll show you where you can go and grab this worksheet to help you guide your learning in our collaboration group area a little bit later on in our session. So this is an example of a worksheet inside BookWidgets. In addition to the worksheet, we also have a quiz. A quiz and a worksheet are very similar, but the main difference between a quiz and a worksheet is you'll notice right away that the quiz has the forward and back scroll buttons where students will see one question at a time. I am a multi-language learner, ESOL teacher, and oftentimes I will use a quiz instead of a worksheet with my students, even when it's not a quiz. Sometimes my students panic if they see a long list of questions, and so narrowing that down with a quiz, just one question at a time on the worksheet, sort of alleviates that anxiousness and stress that my students may have. You may also notice that we have the ability to include LaTeX functioning for math, science educators, for our STEM educators. And you may also notice that in this quiz, I have a background image. One of the wonderful things about BookWidgets are the customization tools that are available to you to meet the needs of all of your learners, where our differentiation isn't an afterthought, but it's at the forefront of our planning and what we do. Another widget that you might find extremely useful in your educator practice is a split worksheet. A split worksheet mirrors the idea of a worksheet. However, we have a division or a split between some content that the students will interact with. In this instance, it happens to be a PDF that I have uploaded here, but it could be rich text, it could be an image, even an embedded audio component. I want you to think about the teacher materials that you have. If you have some teacher materials that are PDF, vendor materials or content materials, think about how you might be able to upload them into a split worksheet to support your students' learning. In addition to the worksheet, the quiz, and the split worksheet, we also have a split whiteboard. Once again, on one side, we have some text that we are interacting with, and on the other side, we have a whiteboard, a piece of paper digitally that we are going to draw on. I could come here and get my drawing tool. I can change the size of my drawing tool, and I could change the color of my drawing tool, and then draw over an image that has been placed onto here. I don't need an image, I can also merely draw. So this is our split whiteboard. With my ESOL and my French students, I love using a split whiteboard as a collaborative activity where one student will read the instructions and the other student will complete that activity. Of course, complete with our undo and redo buttons so that we can quickly edit and adjust. And then one last widget template that I would like to share with you is our video quiz widget. The video quiz widget allows you to embed a video inside a widget activity. You'll notice that there are stopping points.
You're in line at the grocery store when, uh-oh, someone sneezes on you.
You'll notice that there are stopping points along the bottom of the video. And when the students get to a stopping point, the video will pause and the questions that you would like them to think about, answer, or act upon appear. One of the game changers with a BookWidgets video quiz is the ability to add more than one question at a stopping point. And once again, you will notice that we have
Plant cells have cell membranes. Only plant cells have a cell wall.
Over 35 question types for you to choose from. So just like in our worksheet, our split worksheet, and our quiz, a multitude of different question types that you can select from as your students are navigating a video quiz. I love a video quiz for flipped learning. It's a great way if you find yourself repeating things over and over again over the period of a day. Maybe you'll want to create a video quiz to help you with that as well. And look at that. You can even embed a crossword question inside a worksheet, a split worksheet, a quiz, and a video question. But we want to see how this works in Microsoft Teams. So let's navigate right away into Microsoft Teams. I'm signed in as myself as a teacher. You can see my Teams here that I use. And I'm going to show you how to create activities inside Microsoft Teams. Follow along with me. to learn how to do this. I'm going to first open up the team that I want to create an assignment in, and you'll notice that everything appears the same that I have in my Microsoft Teams. I'm going to navigate to assignments, and I'm still going to use my create button. I'm going to create a new assignment. And this is what I want you to find. I want you to find this application section. So you'll see that I scroll down underneath the title and the instructions, and I have my application section. When you click on the application section, you will have an app picker. And depending on the restrictions in your school environment, you will have different applications that you can choose from. You can see right here that I have BookWidgets already in my app picker. If you don't see BookWidgets, come right up to the search button, begin typing what you're looking for, and the applications available to you will show up. If you do not have access to BookWidgets, you may need to select Manage Apps, or you might even need to reach out to your IT department at your school site or district to enable BookWidgets. If you have any issues at all, of course, always reach out to the BookWidgets team. We're happy to help you and assist you with that. So now I have my BookWidgets app. Let me go ahead and put in a title for my assignment. Today's assignment is going to be focusing on jungle animals, and I'm going to remind my students to please complete the attached assignment. It's going to be an attached assignment because I'm going to add that BookWidgets activity. You'll notice that you have your rich text formatting, so anything else that you want to do, you can. If you want to attach anything else as a longer part of an assignment, it's not just a BookWidgets assignment, but you have students doing other things, you can attach it here as well. You have your due date and your drop-down menu for your due date, and the default time is always 11:59. Where this assignment will go, who the assignment will go to. So nothing has changed. And now I'm going to go ahead and add my BookWidgets app. So I'm going to click on my BookWidgets app. You may be asked to sign in. If you're asked to sign in, don't worry about it. You're being signed in through your Microsoft Teams account. And now BookWidgets has opened up directly inside Microsoft Teams. Why is this important? I like being able to work in one place. While I do often have, if you look at my desktop, numerous tabs open, being able to work in one place in a cohesive manner is important to me. So I like being able to work directly inside BookWidgets. I'm going to come here and select Create New Widget. And when I select Create New Widget, that's where I see my list of all the different types of activities. Green are my test and review, orange, my games, purple, pictures and videos, blue, my math, STEM, science, yellow, third party, and my miscellaneous activities. We have our test and review activities here because they are our most used activities. And you may notice these little icons next to some of the widget templates. This will tell you whether you have grading and feedback options, as well as live monitoring, which I will highlight for you in just a little bit. So let's go ahead and choose one of the most used widgets, a worksheet widget. So when I select a worksheet widget, I'm now in my creation editor, my area where I will provide everything necessary for my students' success. I always encourage new users to work from top to bottom, left to right of this page. So let's start right at the top and put in a name. Description is not mandatory, but in the description, you may want to include a date or an activity information, but it's not mandatory. I do want to highlight for you the About section. The About section is a great place where you are able to plan for yourself. The About section is visible only to the teacher. It is not visible to your student, so it's a great place where you can put standards or the last update of your widget if you reuse widgets from year to year. You'll notice that you also have the ability to put in links and images. So you may want to have information to your teacher's manual, but once again, this is only visible to the editor of the widget. So it's a great place that I use to keep myself organized. When you're all done, you can click done and whatever you had typed in there is visible for you. So now let's hop on down to our questions. You'll notice that we have our blue bar. And once again, here are our 35 different question types. If you think it, BookWidgets can help you create it. I want you to know that you probably already have activities that you're using in BookWidgets. You don't have to recreate the wheel. If you have activities saved in a PDF or a Word document, BookWidgets can help you import those directly into one of our templates. And we have a complete video that will guide you through that process on digitizing your work and importing from a PDF or a Word document. So make sure you check that out on our YouTube channel. For my first question, I'm going to choose an annotate picture question. So I'm going to select my annotate picture question, and in the question area is where I put my instructions to students. Now you may notice something different if you are a previous user of BookWidgets. There are no longer the light gray information text, but never fear, it hasn't disappeared. It's right here under this I. So if you click the I, any information that was previously in light gray will appear underneath these information tabs. So in my instructions, I'm going to ask my students to fill in or complete the diagram with the correct English words. My next step is that I need to go get a picture. Another wonderful thing about BookWidgets is that we have a picture library that you can use, all images already curated for you. Now, if you want to choose an image or import an image, choose an image that's stored on your computer or an external drive, you can. You can also import from your Google Drive, but for me, I'm going to go ahead and find an image online. When I select Find an Image Online, I'm taken out to my image library, and I'm going to go ahead and search for some jungle animals. Now, if you're looking for something specific, you can filter, for example, by adding the word clip art after it, but I'm going to search just for an image of some jungle animals. And you could see here all of the different images that are provided for me through the Pixabay image editor. And I can select any of these images and upload them quickly and easily into my activity. I like this activity, so I'm going to go ahead and select this activity. And you can see right away, it's being imported into my BookWidgets question editor. Now, the next thing I need to do, following down top to bottom, is add an input field. An input field is the information that my students are going to enter. So for my first piece of input, I'm going to enter the word giraffe. I want my students to identify the giraffe. BookWidgets has the option where if you think your students might provide an alternate answer or a different answer, you can use this double hashtag and put in any other accepted answers. So I would also accept a giraffe in this instance. So I'm going to use my double hashtag to let BookWidgets know when they do the grading for me that I will accept giraffe or a giraffe. You might notice this red triangle telling me you've missed a step, you still have something you need to complete, I'm going to come over here and put the position of where I want my activity. I'm going to grab my bullseye and move it right here onto my giraffe so my students will be able to see it. Here is my input box, and I want you to notice that I can click to move that input box wherever I would like it. It's not necessary to grab and drag that input box and worry that it might be resized. You can, of course, resize it if you want, but for me, I'm just going to click where I would like my students to place that input. You also have the option to disable the marker, but I want my marker enabled so my students know that I want them to label a giraffe. I'm going to click Done, and now I have that position in there. I want to add another input field. I don't want them to just identify the giraffe. So let's do my lion. Once again, that double hashtag, click the background image, drag the bullseye, move my input field, select Done, and let's do one more. How about monkey? Click on the image, bring my bullseye over, and move my input field. Now, if you're like me, I always have to preview what I'm doing, so I'm going to come up and select Preview. When I select Preview, this takes me out to the student view. So I have here my instructions. I have here my 1, 2, and 3, and my input fields 1, 2, and 3. So I have everything ready for my students for question number 1. I'm going to click this small X to go back to my widget editor. If you click this X, it will close the activity that you're working on, but never fear, everything is automatically saved in BookWidgets, so you don't have to worry about losing your work. All right, so I've added question number 1. I can use my back arrow and I can select Add a Question. I can also come all the way back here and select Add a Question. So let's go ahead and add a second question. And this time I'm going to do a matching activity. You can see I can use this filter button at the top of the question types, and it will filter only my matching activities. I'm going to do a word to picture match. I'm going to remind my students to match the word with the image. Now that I've added my students to match the word with the image, I'm going to need to add my pairs. When you add your pairs, you're going to add your pairs in the correct order. BookWidgets will randomize and mix them up for you. So let's go ahead and add our first pair. So one of the jungle animals that we've been practicing in my classroom is a crocodile. I'm going to go out to my Pixabay editor and look for a crocodile. Here is the crocodile that I like. With that click of a button, my crocodile image is brought into my question type. Now I want to highlight for you these image options. You have some resizing options of auto or none. I like to select auto. When I select auto, it will keep all of my image sizes fairly the same depending on the number of pairs that I have. I also have here rationale and a hint that I can use. A rationale provides information after the student provides their answer. A hint provides students information while they're working. So maybe I want to say, this is not an alligator. My students often mix up those two, so I'll give them a little hint. For your students who may need some extra support, you can also add audio. And I'm going to talk about correction and scoring options in just a minute. So I've added my first pair. we're going to go ahead and add a second pair. So in my second pair, my text is going to be elephant. I'm going to go ahead and find my image of an elephant. I would like to keep it still with the clip art. Find a great elephant. I think I'll go with this one. And same thing, let's go ahead and click again to add another animal. This time I'm going to add a hippo. My students confuse elephants and hippos all the time. So I'm going to add a hippo. Oh. Grab my hippo. And in BookWidgets, you also have the ability to add a distractor. A distractor means that you have more choices on one side than the other. So I'm not going to add text this time, but I'm going to add an image of a zebra. Here's my zebra. And I just want to show you what this is going to look like for question number 2. So in question number 2, you will now notice that I have 3 words, but 4 images. So this moves up the difficulty level of my activity just a little bit for my students. We can click on those images to make them bigger or smaller. So depending on the devices that your students, you can click on those images. And there's my hint. This is not an alligator for my students. Let's go ahead and go back to our question editor because I would like to talk to you about correction and scoring options. Correction and scoring options, once again, are totally customizable for you. And in this instance, you'll note that the scoring weight is 1. And you might say you have 3 or 4 choices. How does that work? With the scoring weight, 1 will be multiplied by the number of correctly filled in answers. So in this instance, this question would be worth 4 points. You could customize it to 3, but you don't need to change your answer correction options to any more than 1. If you move that up to 3 or 4, it would mean that each of these choices is worth 3 points, and that's not what we want. So we're going to keep that as 1. The same way, we're going to keep question number 1, the annotate picture, with a scoring weight of 1. Let's go ahead and add one more question. And in this case, I'm going to add a question that is not automatically graded by BookWidgets. I'm going to ask my students to complete a multi-line text question. This is a short answer style question. I'm going to give them instructions again. I'm going to ask my students to write a 5-sentence paragraph. And I'm going to ask them to tell me about their favorite jungle animal. I'm going to remind them that I need 5 sentences. We've been practicing adjectives, so I'm going to also ask them to include 3 adjectives. So here are my instructions for my students. Now you'll notice that I've asked them to do a 5-sentence paragraph. So in this instance, I'm going to come down to my options and I'm going to change the scoring weight from 1 to 5. I'm going to give my students a correct point for each sentence that they have. And of course, if they have all 3 adjectives, I will also give them the maximum number of points, 5 points. So now I have my activity all set and ready to go. Question number 1, question number 2, and my short response, question number 3. So these are my 3 options that I have for my students, as I've created this activity for them. I'm going to go ahead and select Save. BookWidgets will process my widget, and it will ask me about my Microsoft Teams assignment. Do I want to update the points in Microsoft Teams? Yes, I'm going to say yes. This is totally up to you, but I would like that assignment option ready to go. Now I'm going to return to Teams because I had that pop-up window opened as I was creating my work inside BookWidgets. Here's the title of my activity, my instructions for my students, and now you can see that the BookWidgets Jungle Animals activity is attached. I have my same options of assigning this to all of my students right now, schedule it to appear in the future, and I still have the Save as Draft. I want to tell you that I use the Save as Draft option all the time. I teach different levels of students in the same class. So I create this widget on jungle animals, and I might have different difficulty levels for my students in 3 different widgets that look similar to my students. I save as a draft. For my just beginning students, I might send them an activity that's a little bit easier. For my more advanced students, one that's a little bit more difficult, but it's the same widget. I've just duplicated and made accommodations for my students. In this instance, I'm going to assign this activity to everyone. So I'm going to go ahead and assign the activity. So now I can see that my activity is going to be assigned. I see that pop-up that we get. I can come back to my activity stream and I can see that I have an assignment that's due for my students on jungle animals. This is still my teacher view that my students are looking at. Let me go ahead and refresh my screen for you. Come back to my English Language Arts, and here it is, showing my students. This is my teacher stream that the activity is due on August 18th. So I know that I've sent this to my students, but I also want to show you what this looks like for our students. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up my student view for you to take a look at. Here is my student in my English Language Arts team. Now I'm working as a student. So I've taken off my teacher hat and I'm working as a student. And let's go ahead and refresh. So here's all of our students' assignments. And here is the jungle animals assignment. As a student, I can click on View Assignment. And that assignment view with my instructions, my points, the due date, the turn-in button, everything is here. The only difference is that my student is going to open up BookWidgets inside Microsoft Teams. So this is a game changer for me. My students don't have multiple tabs open. They're not navigating to different areas. They don't have to memorize URL or web pages. They merely click on the reference material. And just like as a teacher, this is going to open up for the student inside Microsoft Teams. You'll notice the student is not signing into BookWidgets. The student is signing into Teams. We don't require students to have an account inside Microsoft Teams. All right, here is Alex. Here is her activity in Jungle Animals. And we're going to go ahead and fill in this diagram. So our first instance is giraffe. Then we have lion. I'm making a spelling mistake for demonstration purposes. And monkey. So Alex is completing the activity in that student view. And I'm going to place side by side Alex's student work and my BookWidgets account. I'm going to select this button, Live. When I select the Live button and I'm working inside a learning management system, I will be able to see the work that my students are doing. See here, Jungle Animals. It says that somebody was in Jungle Animals 3 minutes ago. I can click on this activity and I can see that it's Alex. Alex is working on jungle animals. I can also see that Alex is working on question number 1, and so far she has 2 out of 3. Now I want you to watch what happens when I start working on question number 2. So I'm going to go find the crocodile, match up the crocodile, and immediately, do you see that automatic scoring? Game changer. Think of the time this is going to save for you. You can also click on Alex's name and see exactly in real time what she is working on. So she matches elephant. You'll see, I see that she's having some problems. Maybe I need to go and speak with Alex, or maybe she's still working. So watch what happens when she changes. Now that automatic update is there. Remember what I showed you, that when you have this live mode, you are able in real time to either message your students if you're in a remote environment, or walk over to your students in the face-to-face world and have a conversation with them. Maybe if your student is a Spanish speaker, you know that they know what this animal is. Gently remind them, remember, I'm asking you for the words in English. Maybe it will help them think about it. And then we have our writing activity. And when we have the writing activity, you will see on the right-hand side here that I can see in real time the work that Alex is doing. So I can see in real time that Alex is working. I know that the technology is working for her. I know that she's not having any problems utilizing Microsoft Teams or BookWidgets. Sometimes our students don't answer because they're struggling with technology. So being able to see them do the work in real time is really a way to help you and your students. Now, when Alex is completely done with her activity, she selects the submit button. And by selecting the submit button, she is turning her work into BookWidgets and saying, all right, I'm ready for you to evaluate my work. Notice here you have this pop-up reminding your students to turn in your assignment in Microsoft Teams. Why do we receive this pop-up? One of the reasons why we receive this pop-up about an activity inside Microsoft Teams is because for some of our students, it may be part of a longer activity. So if I had a multi-step activity here that Alex was working on, she might not be ready to turn in her assignment. But there's always that reminder to make sure that you turn your activity into Microsoft Teams. So let's look at the student assignment page. Here is my reference material. Here is the work that Alex turned in to BookWidgets for grading. And now I'm going to press my turn in button. This turn in button is also important if you receive notifications from your students that work has been turned in. So this is something that you will review with your students. It's up to each teacher to go over those rituals and routines for their students. I always love the little icons that students get when they turn in their work. So Alex now has turned in her work, her reference material is attached, and she has turned in her work through Microsoft Teams. So now I'm going to come back to my teacher login. I can see Alex's work, and I am inside the live widget. Once I've logged in as the educator, here's my English Language Arts class. I can also see under my grades any work that has been submitted. Here's Alex's work that she has submitted. I can open that student work from my grading page and return the student work from my grading page. I want to take a look at the student work first. So I'm going to come over and take a look at Alex's work. This is an interactive PDF of Alex's work. So here are all of her answers. and I can take a look quickly and begin grading her work. So here, for example, I can click on the word and say, remind her to watch her spelling. Of course, I want to make sure I spell it correctly as well. And maybe I want to give her some partial credit. I can adjust the grade if I want to here. Don't think that I would give her full credit, but I know she knows the animal, so maybe I will give her partial credit. So even though BookWidgets has done the grading for you, you are able to go back in and update anything else that you want. Oh. Remind her to make sure she answers all questions. And then I'm going to go ahead and grade her essay. I see that she does have some adjectives, big, fierce, orange, and I see that she's told me it's her favorite animal, but she only has 2 sentences. So I'm going to remind her to write a complete paragraph. And remember, this is a question that definitely needs to have a grade entered manually. In this instance, I'm going to go ahead and give Alex 3 points. I'm going to give her 3 points because that second sentence is a great sentence. So even though she only has 2 sentences, I'm going to give her 3 points based on that rubric in my mind, or you could create a BookWidgets rubric. You can also leave a summarizing content here about the entire activity. So these comments were for individual questions. I can also leave a summarizing comment here. While I'm here, I also want to highlight this toolbar for you. We have a filter button, and the filter button will filter out any correct answers. So now that we have done that filter button, if the entire question is correct, so BookWidgets is looking at question number 2 as everything in question number 2 was correct, or everything in question number 3 was correct, it would filter that out. And why is that filter a great idea? I don't know about you, but for me, I read everything, even if it's correct. So it's a way to save time for yourself. You can also download the activity as a PDF if you need to share it with a parent or other stakeholders in your school. You can return work, delete, archive, and also customize the grading options for an individual student. So in the student view, for example, if I didn't want Alex to have the correct answers, I could say hide the correct answers, and you'll see here right away, it doesn't show Alex her correct answers. Why is this important? Because if you teach the same thing multiple times throughout a day, it's amazing how smart the students at the end of the day become. So you may want to not show the correct answers. Once again, everything is totally customizable by student, and you also have by class. Global configuration are your correction options by class. So you can configure by student or by class right here. You may have also noticed these various pop-out icons as I was creating content. That's to pop out an activity and make it a little bit bigger if you find that this image is too small for you to work with. So you have those options as well. Now, I don't usually use this return work option because I like to return all of my student work at the same time, but you most definitely could use the return work option here if you have just an individual student that you wanted to return that work to. So I have my work here for my students, and that was in my BookWidgets tab under grades and reporting. You'll notice here that when you hit that return option, it will send a copy of the answer to the student, how you've set it up, either via email or in their Microsoft Teams account. You always want to make sure that you get this green bar that reminds you that the feedback was sent to the student. When I come back here to my grades and reporting, I can see my student work. Here's my student work. but I don't need to come here because I did that directly inside Microsoft Teams, but it is there as well, waiting for you inside BookWidgets. Now, when I come back to my team, English Language Arts, here's my Jungle Animals assignment. I want to make sure that I always make sure that I return that work to Alex. I'm going to use my check mark and return. So just like I did as a student, I returned the work in BookWidgets and then returned the work in Teams. Now I've returned the work in BookWidgets with that interactive PDF, and I'm going to make sure that I return that in Teams as well. Now I want to come back to Alex's work so that you can see Alex's work inside Microsoft Teams. So I've closed the feedback loop on the educator end, but I want the student to be able to see the answers and my feedback as well. So here we're going to go to our grades. Alex can see that her Jungle Animals has been returned. Here is her work. If you've given them the option in Teams or in BookWidgets to turn in their work again and make revisions, you can. Here's Alex's score, and look at this. Here is my feedback to Alex. So everything available to Alex to see and view with my corrections. And for me, the ability to include these corrections inside Microsoft Teams digitally is a huge time saver for me. For many of you, the school year is starting and the beginning of the school year is stressful. And I want you to know that if you use this Microsoft Teams integration, where you've now seen the complete feedback loop from teacher to student, student back to teacher, and teacher providing that feedback, BookWidgets can be a game changer for you in what you're working on with your students. Now, as we finish up, I want to come back to my BookWidgets dashboard. So I'm going to leave Microsoft Teams for a minute. This is my BookWidgets landing page, and I want to show you something that perhaps you may have missed. BookWidgets doesn't believe in just creating content on your own, but we want to encourage you to collaborate with other educators as well. Those may be educators in your school, district, or even from around the world. And if you haven't discovered My Groups yet, I want you to make sure that you give yourself a little bit of homework and make sure that you click on the left-hand side on the My Groups column. Now, why do I want you to find groups? Groups are where teachers are sharing widget activities with one another. And you can see I'm all about working smarter, not harder. I'm in a lot of different groups here. And if you are going to search for one group, I want you to look for our BookWidgets blog group. As you know, we post blogs on a regular basis, and every time we have a blog post, we share widget activities that have been created for you. I want you to see all of these folders. All of these folders are filled with activities that you can duplicate and use in your classroom. So for example, if you want to take a look at some back to school icebreakers, here we have some back to school icebreakers. You hit the eyeball to preview it to see if this is something that you would like. So find somebody who can juggle, find someone who plays Pokemon Go. You say, oh, this is a great icebreaker. I don't have to recreate something. You would come right over to the drop-down menu, duplicate, and you would get a copy of this icebreaker game in your BookWidgets account. So please make sure, once again, that you find My Groups, that you scroll to Discover Groups, and you search for whatever group you're interested in. If you're looking for something related to STEM, we have a STEM group. And when you press that search button, all of the different groups that are available to you will be there. Join those groups to help you collaborate with others and be intentional in the work that you're doing. So we had a jam-packed hour. I hope that you were able to really get a good idea of what BookWidgets and Microsoft Teams can do for you. And thank you so much for joining this Wednesday webinar series.